She walked into his empire like a ghost returning from the grave. He laughed, cold, cruel, the same laugh that destroyed her 5 years ago. Then 3 little girls stepped off his private jet. His blood, his eyes, his legacy, and something else. Something impossible. Something that made even the most dangerous man in the city freeze. He didn't know they existed. She never planned to tell him. But now, the secret was out, and the world he built on power and fear was about to shatter, because love doesn't ask for permission. It just comes back, stronger. The city never slept, but Min-jae ruled its shadows with the kind of silence that made men disappear without screams. At 32, he was the youngest dawn in the Korean underground empire. His name alone was a threat whispered in nightclubs, boardrooms, and back alleys where debts were paid in blood. He sat in his penthouse office, surrounded by glass walls that reflected the city lights like a throne made of stars. His fingers drummed against the mahogany desk. Cold, rhythmic, unbothered. Until the door opened without a knock. His bodyguard hesitated. "Sir, there's a woman. She says she needs to speak with you." Min-jae didn't look up. "Tell her to leave. I don't meet strangers." She said you'd remember her." Something in the silence shifted. Min-jae's hand stopped mid-air. He lifted his gaze slowly, the kind of slow that carried weight. "Who is she?" The bodyguard swallowed. "She didn't give her name, but she said to tell you. The woman you threw away like trash." The air cracked. Min-jae's jaw tightened, his knuckles white against the desk. 5 years. 5 years since he'd erased that chapter of his life. 5 years since he'd told her she was too poor, too ordinary, too beneath him to ever be part of his world. He remembered her tears, her silence, the way she walked out without begging. He thought he'd never see her again. "Bring her in," he said, his voice low and dangerous. She stepped into the room, and the world stopped. Naomi. She looked nothing like the fragile girl who once loved him. Her shoulders were straight, her gaze steady. She wore a simple black dress that hugged her brown skin like armor. Her natural curls framed her face, softer than he remembered, but her eyes, God, her eyes, were sharpened by years of surviving what he'd done to her. Min-jae leaned back in his chair, forcing a smirk to hide the earthquake inside him. "Well, well," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "The ghost returns. What do you want? Money? A favor? Or did you just miss being humiliated?" Naomi didn't flinch. "I need your help," she said quietly. He laughed. It was sharp, bitter, designed to cut. "Help? From me? You must be desperate." He stood, walking toward her with the slow confidence of a predator. "Let me guess. Life didn't work out the way you hoped? No prince came to save you?" She met his eyes without fear. "I'm not here for me." "Then who?" His smirk widened. "A new boyfriend? A poor family that needs saving?" She said nothing, just turned toward the door. Min-jae's voice dropped. "I didn't say you could leave." Before she could respond, the sound of small footsteps echoed in the hallway. And then they appeared. 3 little girls, no older than 5, walked into the room holding hands. Identical faces, identical dark curls, identical almond-shaped eyes that shimmered with a strange golden light. Min-jae froze. The world tilted. Because those eyes were his. The eldest girl looked up at him, her voice small but clear. "Mommy, is this the man you told us about?" Naomi's voice was steady, but her heart was breaking. "Yes, sweetheart. This is your father." The room exploded into silence. Min-jae staggered back, his hand gripping the edge of his desk, his breath shallow, his mind racing. "No," he whispered. "No, that's impossible." Naomi's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "You threw me out when I was 2 months pregnant. You told me I wasn't good enough for your world, so I left. I raised them alone, and I never planned to come back. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. But now, they need you. And I hate that. I hate that I have to stand here and ask the man who destroyed me to save the only thing I have left. Min-jae couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Because the 3 little girls standing in front of him, his daughters, were glowing, literally glowing. Their hands shimmered with soft golden light, like fireflies caught in their palms. The air around them hummed with energy, warm and alive. One of the girls smiled. "Daddy, we can do magic." And Min-jae's empire, built on power, fear, and control, crumbled in that single moment. The silence in the penthouse was heavier than the city's noise below. Min-jae stood frozen, his sharp mind, the one that had outsmarted rivals, crushed enemies, built an empire, now completely shattered. His daughters, 3 of them, staring at him with eyes that mirrored his own, but filled with something he'd never known. Innocence. Naomi didn't move. She stood like a sentinel, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. But inside, she was screaming. Screaming at herself for coming here. Screaming at the universe for making her need the man who once called her worthless. The eldest girl, the one who spoke first, tilted her head. Her golden glow flickered softly, like a candle in the wind. "Mommy said you're really important," she whispered. "Are you?" Min-jae's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck like glass. The second girl stepped forward, braver. "We've been looking for you our whole lives." The third girl, the quietest, just stared at him. Her glow was brighter than her sister's, and her eyes, God, her eyes, seemed to see right through him. Naomi's voice finally broke the spell. "Their names are Hana, Sumin, and Jiyeon." Min-jae blinked. You gave them Korean names." "They're half yours," Naomi said coldly. "I couldn't erase that, no matter how much I wanted to." The words hit him like a bullet. He looked at the girls again. Really looked. Hana, the eldest, had his sharp jawline. Sumin had his nose. Jiyeon had his intensity. But they all had Naomi's warmth, her spirit, her softness. They were perfect. And he'd missed everything. "Why now?" His voice cracked. "Why come back now?" Naomi's eyes hardened. "Because they're dying." The world stopped. Min-jae's blood turned to ice. "What?" Naomi's composure finally broke. Her voice trembled. "Their gift, the light you see, it's killing them. It's growing stronger every day, and I don't know how to stop it. I've taken them to every doctor, every specialist. No one knows what it is. No one can help." She stepped closer, her fists clenched. "But I heard rumors. Rumors about your family, about the old Korean legends your grandmother used to tell, about bloodlines with abilities." Min-jae's face went pale. His grandmother, the woman who raised him before she passed. She used to tell him stories he dismissed as folklore, myths meant to scare children. Stories about their ancestors, about gifts passed through blood, about power that could heal or destroy. He thought they were just stories. But now... "You think this is genetic?" he whispered. Naomi nodded. "I think whatever is in your blood activated in them, and I think you're the only one who can help me figure out how to save them." Min-jae looked at his daughters again. The glow around their hands pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Beautiful, terrifying. He swallowed hard. "How long do they have?" Naomi's voice broke. "Weeks, maybe less." Min-jae's empire was built on control, on certainty, on making impossible things bend to his will. But this was beyond him. He turned away, his hands trembling. "I don't know anything about this. I can't—" "You're their father!" Naomi's voice cracked like thunder. "You don't get to run away again!" He spun around, his eyes blazing. I didn't know. You didn't care, she screamed. You threw me out like I was nothing. You didn't even ask if I was okay. You just moved on. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, and she hated herself for it. Hated him for making her cry again. Min-jae's chest heaved, his fists clenched, but he said nothing, because she was right. Hana stepped between them, her small hands glowing brighter. Please don't fight. Her voice was so small, so fragile, that both adults froze. Sumin took Naomi's hand. Mommy, it's okay. We're okay. Ji-yeon walked up to Min-jae and stared up at him with those impossibly deep eyes. She didn't say anything, just placed her glowing hand against his chest, and Min-jae felt it. A warmth, a connection, something ancient and undeniable. His daughters, his blood, his responsibility. He knelt down slowly, his eyes level with Ji-yeon's. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Ji-yeon tilted her head. Will you help us? Min-jae looked at Naomi. She was crying, but her gaze was fierce, unforgiving. He didn't deserve forgiveness, but these girls deserved a chance. Yes, he said, his voice barely audible. I'll help you. Naomi wiped her tears roughly. Don't do this because you feel guilty. Do it because they're your daughters. Min-jae stood, his jaw set. Where do we start? Naomi exhaled shakily. Your grandmother's journals. If anyone knew about this, it was her. Min-jae's face darkened. Those journals are locked away. No one's touched them in years. Then it's time to open them, Naomi said firmly. He nodded. I'll have them brought here tonight. For the first time in 5 years, they were on the same side. Not allies, not lovers, but parents. And the war to save their daughters had just begun. The journals arrived at midnight, carried by 2 of Min-jae's most trusted men. Leather-bound, aged, fragile. They smelled like incense and old secrets. Naomi sat on the floor of Min-jae's private library, the girls asleep on a nearby sofa, their glow dimmed but still present. She watched as Min-jae carefully opened the first journal, his grandmother's handwriting elegant and deliberate. She wrote in Korean, he murmured. Old dialect. I'll need to translate. Naomi leaned closer. What does it say? Min-jae's eyes scanned the pages, his expression darkening with every word. It's a genealogy, a record of our family line, but not just names and dates. She documented abilities. Naomi's breath caught. What kind of abilities? Healing, foresight, manipulation of energy. He paused, his finger tracing a specific entry. And something she called the light of creation. Naomi's heart pounded. That's what the girls have. Min-jae nodded slowly. According to this, the ability appears only in direct descendants of the original bloodline. It's rare, powerful, and... He stopped. And what? Naomi demanded. He looked up, his face pale. Dangerous. If not controlled, it consumes the host. The light burns from the inside out. Naomi's world tilted. No, there has to be a way to stop it. Min-jae flipped through the pages frantically. There is, but it requires... He stopped again, his jaw clenching. Requires what? Naomi's voice rose. A sacrifice, he said quietly. Someone with the same bloodline has to willingly transfer their life force to stabilize the children. It's called the binding. Naomi stared at him, her mind racing. You mean, you? Min-jae met her eyes. Or anyone in my family line. Do you have siblings? Cousins? He shook his head. I'm the last one. My parents are gone. My grandmother was the only one left, and she's been dead for 10 years. Naomi's hands trembled. So, you're saying you'd have to. Die, Min-jae finished. Yes. The word hung in the air like a blade. Naomi stood abruptly, pacing. No, absolutely not. There has to be another way. There isn't, Min-jae said, his voice steady. This is the only option. Then we find another option, Naomi shouted. I didn't bring them here so you could kill yourself. Min-jae stood, his presence towering. You brought them here because you had no choice, and neither do I. You don't even know them, Naomi's voice cracked. You've been in their lives for one day, and now you think you can just… They're my daughters, Min-jae interrupted, his voice low and fierce, and I won't let them die. Naomi's tears returned, hot and angry. You think this is redemption? You think dying makes up for abandoning us? No, Min-jae said quietly. Nothing makes up for that. But at least I can give them a future. Naomi shook her head, her sobs breaking free. I hate you. I hate you so much. I know, Min-jae whispered. They stood there, inches apart, the weight of 5 years and 3 lives between them. Then Hana's voice, soft and sleepy, broke the silence. Daddy? Min-jae turned. Hana was sitting up, rubbing her eyes, her glow faint but steady. Are you leaving us again? Min-jae's heart shattered. He walked over and knelt beside her.
Wait, if you're married or in a relationship, this message is for you. Do you feel like he doesn't really see you anymore? Like no matter what you do, he's distant, distracted. Almost like you're strangers under the same roof? The more time passes, the colder it feels. The laughter, the closeness, it's fading. And deep down you're scared. Scared that the connection you once had is slipping away. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a path to being noticed, to being desired, to feeling close again. Scan the QR code now and take the first step. Don't wait. This moment, it's yours if you act.
No, sweetheart. I'm not leaving. Hana's eyes filled with tears. Promise? Min-jae's voice broke. I promise. She threw her arms around his neck, and for the first time in his life, Min-jae felt something more powerful than fear, more binding than loyalty. Love. Unconditional, terrifying, irreversible. And he knew, in that moment, he would do anything to protect it, even if it meant losing everything. The next 3 days were a blur of sleepless nights and desperate research. Min-jae's penthouse became a fortress, armed guards at every entrance, doctors flown in from across the world, specialists in genetics, energy medicine, even mystics who claimed to understand supernatural phenomena. None of them had answers. The girls' glow grew brighter each day. Their energy spiked and fell like fever. Hana started having visions, flashes of places she'd never been, people she'd never met. Su-min could move objects without touching them. Ji-yeon's glow burned so hot that Naomi couldn't hold her hand for more than a few seconds. They were running out of time. Min-jae barely slept. He spent every waking hour reading his grandmother's journals, searching for any detail he might have missed. Naomi stayed by the girls' side, singing to them, telling them stories, pretending everything would be okay. But late at night, when the girls finally slept, the truth settled between them like smoke. One night, Naomi found Min-jae standing by the window, staring at the city below. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight. You're really going to do it, aren't you? She said quietly. He didn't turn. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not this time. His voice was hollow. The binding ritual is clear. My life force for theirs. It's the only way to stabilize their power. Naomi walked closer. And what about them? You think they'll thank you for dying? You think they'll grow up proud that their father killed himself before they even got to know him? Min-jae's fists clenched. They'll be alive. That's all that matters. No, Naomi said fiercely. It's not. They deserve a father. A real one. Not a ghost they'll spend their whole lives mourning. He finally turned to face her. His eyes were red, exhausted. I can't save them any other way. Naomi's voice cracked. Then we find another way together. For a moment, something passed between them. Something fragile and unspoken. Then Hana's scream shattered the night. They ran. Hana was convulsing on the bed, her body glowing so bright it hurt to look at. Sumin and Jiyeon were crying, their own lights flickering wildly. "What's happening?" Naomi grabbed Hana, holding her tight. Min-jae's mind raced. He remembered a passage in the journal, something about energy surges triggered by emotional distress. "She's scared," he said urgently. "They all are. The power responds to fear." Naomi's tears fell. "How do we stop it?" Min-jae knelt beside them, his hands shaking. "We calm them. We make them feel safe." He looked at Hana, his voice soft. "Hana, look at me. I'm here. I'm not leaving. You're safe." Hana's eyes found his, wild and terrified. "I promise," Min-jae whispered. "I'm your father, and I will protect you. Always." Slowly, the glow began to dim. Naomi held Sumin and Jiyeon close, whispering the same words. "You're safe. We're here. We love you." Minutes passed like hours. But finally, the light softened. The girl's breathing steadied. Hana collapsed into Min-jae's arms, sobbing. "Don't leave us, Daddy. Please." Min-jae held her tight, his own tears falling silently. "I won't. I won't." But he knew it was a lie, because in 2 days the ritual had to happen, or they would all burn. The morning of the ritual arrived like a death sentence. Min-jae stood in his private study, dressed in traditional Korean robes his grandmother had left behind. The journals lay open on the desk, the binding ritual outlined in meticulous detail. It required a full moon, a circle of salt, and a willing heart. Naomi entered without knocking. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her voice was steady. "There has to be another way." Min-jae didn't look up. "We've been over this." "No," Naomi said, "we haven't. Because you've already made up your mind to die, and you won't even consider—" "Consider what?" Min-jae snapped, finally meeting her eyes. "What else is there?" Naomi stepped closer. "What if the ritual doesn't need death? What if it just needs balance?" Min-jae frowned. "What are you talking about?" She pulled out a torn page from one of the journals. "I found this last night. Your grandmother wrote about a modified version of the binding, one that doesn't require sacrifice. It requires partnership." Min-jae took the page, his eyes scanning quickly. His breath caught. "Two bloodlines, bound together, can share the burden," Naomi read aloud. "If both parents willingly channel their life force into the children, the power stabilizes without loss of life." Min-jae's hands trembled. "Both parents. That means—" "Me," Naomi finished. "I'm their mother. My blood is already tied to theirs. If we do this together—" "No," Min-jae said immediately. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "Because it's dangerous. The journal doesn't say what happens to the parents afterward. It could—" "Kill us both?" Naomi's eyes blazed. "Or it could save us all." Min-jae shook his head. "I won't risk your life. But you'll risk yours?" Naomi's voice rose. "You think I can raise them alone if you die? You think they'll forgive me for letting you go through with this?" Min-jae's jaw clenched. "This isn't your burden to carry." "They're my daughters," Naomi shouted. "I carried them for 9 months. I raised them alone. I sang them to sleep every night while you built your empire and forgot we existed." The words hit like stones. Naomi's voice broke. "So don't you dare tell me this isn't my burden. I've been carrying it for 5 years. And now, when I finally have a chance to save them with you by my side, you want to take that away too?" Min-jae stared at her, his walls crumbling. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you risk everything for me?" Naomi's tears fell freely. "Not for you, for them, because they deserve both of us, together." The silence stretched. Then Min-jae nodded slowly. "Together." The hours before the ritual moved like honey, slow, thick, weighted with everything unsaid. Min-jae stood in his private bathroom, staring at his reflection. The man looking back at him was a stranger, 32 years old, but his eyes carried decades of regret. He'd built an empire on fear, commanded loyalty through power, survived wars that left bodies in their wake. But nothing had prepared him for fatherhood, for loving 3 little girls who glowed like fireflies, for standing beside the woman he'd destroyed and learning what partnership truly meant. He splashed cold water on his face, the chill grounding him. Tonight, everything would change. Either they would save their daughters together, or they would lose everything trying. There was no middle ground. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "It's me." Naomi's voice was quiet. Min-jae opened the door. She stood there in a simple white dress, her natural curls pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger than her years, vulnerable, but her eyes held steel. "The girls are asking for you," she said. Min-jae nodded. "I'll be right there." Naomi hesitated, her hand on the doorframe. "Min-jae." He waited. "Whatever happens tonight," she said softly, "I need you to know something." "What?" Her voice trembled. "I forgive you." The words hit him like a tidal wave. His chest tightened, his throat closed. He wanted to speak, to tell her she shouldn't, that he didn't deserve it, that forgiveness wasn't something he'd earned. But Naomi continued, tears filling her eyes. "Not because you've made up for what you did, you haven't, but because holding on to that anger, it's been killing me, and tonight, we need to be united. Completely." Min-jae's voice was barely a whisper. "Naomi, I know," she interrupted gently. "I know you're sorry. I've seen it in every look you've given them, every time you hold them, every night you've stayed up reading those journals until your eyes bled." She stepped closer. "You can't change the past, but you're here now, and that matters." Min-jae's walls, the ones he'd spent years building, finally crumbled. A single tear rolled down his cheek. "Thank you," he whispered. Naomi reached up and wiped the tear away. "Come on. Our daughters are waiting." The girls were in their shared bedroom, surrounded by toys and books Min-jae had bought them over the past week. Hana sat cross-legged on the floor, her glow dim but steady, drawing pictures with crayons. Soo-min was stacking blocks, using her telekinesis to float them into impossible towers. Ji-yeon lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her light pulsing gently like a heartbeat. When Min-jae and Naomi entered, all 3 looked up. "Daddy!" Hana jumped up and ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. Min-jae knelt and pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Hey, sweetheart." Soo-min abandoned her blocks and joined the embrace. "Are we doing the special thing tonight?" Min-jae exchanged a glance with Naomi. They'd explained the ritual in simple terms, that Mommy and Daddy would use their love to make the light stop hurting. "Yes," Min-jae said gently. "We're going to help you feel better." Ji-yeon sat up slowly. She was the quietest of the 3, but her eyes saw everything. "Will it hurt?" Naomi sat beside her, stroking her hair. "No, baby, it won't hurt. You'll just feel warm, safe, loved." Ji-yeon considered this, then nodded. "Okay." Hana pulled back and looked up at Min-jae with those impossibly deep eyes. "Daddy, after tonight, will you stay with us? Forever?" Min-jae's heart shattered and mended in the same breath. "Yes, Hana, I promise. I'm not going anywhere." "Even if we're too glowy?" Soo-min asked, her voice small. Min-jae smiled, his eyes stinging. "Especially because you're glowy. That's what makes you special." The girls grinned, their lights brightening with joy. For the next hour, they simply existed together. Min-jae read them stories. Naomi braided their hair. They played and laughed and forgot, for just a moment, about the danger lurking in their blood. But as the moon began to rise, reality returned. It was time. The rooftop had been transformed. A perfect circle of salt gleamed in the moonlight, wide enough for all 5 of them. Candles surrounded the perimeter, their flames dancing in the night breeze. Min-jae's grandmother's journals lay open on a small table, the binding ritual marked with ribbons. Two of Min-jae's most trusted men stood guard at the rooftop entrance, ensuring no interruptions. They'd been with him for years, loyal to the bone. But even they looked uneasy. The air itself felt charged, electric, alive. Min-jae carried Hana up the stairs. Naomi held Soo-min's hand. Ji-yeon walked between them, her glow already intensifying as the moon climbed higher. "It's beautiful," Hana whispered, staring at the candles. "Like a fairy tale," Soo-min added. Naomi's hand trembled as she guided them into the circle. "Okay, girls, remember what we talked about? You're going to stand in the middle, hold hands, and think happy thoughts. Can you do that?" All three nodded. Min-jae stepped into the circle beside Naomi. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Two broken people trying to become whole for the sake of 3 miracles. "Ready?" Min-jae asked quietly. Naomi took a deep breath. "Ready." They positioned themselves on opposite sides of the girls, forming a diamond. Min-jae took Hana and Soo-min's hands. Naomi took Ji-yeon and Hana's. The circle completed. Min-jae began reading the incantation, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. The words were ancient Korean, syllables that tasted like smoke and starlight. Naomi repeated each line, her voice harmonizing with his. The girls' glow intensified, rising from their hands to their arms, spreading across their bodies. But this time, there was no pain, no fear, just warmth. "We give you our strength," Min-jae intoned, his eyes locked on his daughters. "Our life, our love. We give you balance," Naomi continued, tears streaming down her face. "So you can shine without burning." The light exploded outward, a supernova of gold and white. The candles flickered wildly. The salt circle glowed. The entire rooftop was engulfed in radiance. Min-jae felt his energy draining, flowing out of him like water. But it didn't hurt. It felt right. Like pieces of himself he didn't know existed were finally finding their purpose. Naomi gasped, her knees buckling, but she held on. Her own light, something she didn't know she carried, poured into the girls, mingling with Min-jae's. The girls rose off the ground, suspended in midair, their eyes closed, their expressions peaceful. And then, a voice, not spoken, but felt, echoed through all of them. "You are bound, blood to blood, heart to heart. No power can break what love has sealed." The light contracted suddenly, pulling inward, condensing into the girls' chests. It pulsed once, twice, 3 times, then softened into a gentle, steady glow. The girls floated back down, their feet touching the ground. Their eyes opened, and they smiled. "Mommy? Daddy?" Hana's voice was clear, strong. "We feel better." Min-jae and Naomi collapsed to their knees, gasping for air. Their bodies felt hollowed out, like they'd run 1,000 miles. But they were alive. And their daughters, their beautiful, glowing daughters, were healed. Soo-min giggled, lifting her hand. The light was still there, but controlled, gentle, like a candle instead of a wildfire. "Look, it's not scary anymore." Ji-yeon walked to Naomi and placed her small hand on her mother's cheek. Warmth flooded through Naomi, soothing the exhaustion, filling the emptiness. "Thank you, Mommy." Hana did the same to Min-jae. "Thank you, Daddy." Min-jae pulled all 3 girls into his arms, sobbing openly. Naomi joined them, wrapping her arms around the entire family. They'd done it. Together. The guards at the entrance turned away, giving them privacy. Even hardened men knew when to respect something sacred. The following days were a blur of recovery and revelation. Min-jae and Naomi slept for nearly 24 hours straight, their bodies recovering from the energy transfer. When they woke, the girls were curled up between them, their glow steady and calm. Doctors examined them, discreetly, carefully. The results were miraculous. The girls' vitals were perfect. Their abilities were stable. Whatever genetic anomaly had threatened to consume them was now balanced, integrated, part of them without being destructive. But the doctors noticed something else. Min-jae and Naomi had changed too. They could feel each other's emotions now, faintly. A phantom connection established by the ritual. When Naomi felt anxious, Min-jae knew. When Min-jae felt guilty, Naomi sensed it. It was uncomfortable at first, invasive. But gradually, it became grounding. They couldn't hide from each other anymore, couldn't pretend. The bond forced honesty, and honesty, they discovered, was the foundation of everything they'd been missing. 2 weeks later, Min-jae made the announcement on a quiet Tuesday morning. He gathered his inner circle, the men who'd stood beside him through wars, betrayals, empires built, and kingdoms defended. "I'm stepping back," he said simply. Silence. His second in command, a man named Jun-ho, who'd been with him since the beginning, spoke first. "Sir?" Min-jae met his eyes. "I'm not disappearing. I'll still oversee major decisions, but I'm no longer leading day-to-day operations. Jun-ho, you're in charge now." Jun-ho's face paled. "Boss, I don't—" "You do," Min-jae interrupted. "You've earned it. You're loyal, smart, ruthless when necessary, and fair when possible. This empire is yours now." Another man, younger, spoke up. "Is this because of the woman? The girls?" Min-jae's expression hardened. "Yes, and if anyone has a problem with that, speak now." No one did, because they'd all seen the change in him. The way his shoulders had relaxed, the way he smiled, something he almost never did before. The way he left the office at 6 p.m. instead of midnight, rushing home to read bedtime stories. He was still the Don, still dangerous, still commanded absolute respect. But he was also a father now, and that made him more human, more complete. Jun-ho nodded slowly. "We'll keep the empire strong, boss. You have my word." Min-jae clasped his shoulder. "I know." 1 month later, Naomi opened a small clinic in the heart of the city, a place where people with unusual medical conditions could seek help without judgment. It was funded anonymously, by Min-jae, though she pretended not to know. She hired the best doctors, researchers, therapists, and word spread quickly. People came from across the country, children with unexplainable symptoms, adults with abilities they couldn't control, families desperate for answers. Naomi helped them all. And the girls, they became her assistants. Hana used her visions to help doctors diagnose difficult cases. Sumin would fetch supplies without leaving the room, her telekinesis gentle and precise. Ji-yeon's warmth soothed anxious patients, calming panic attacks and easing pain. They were learning to use their gifts for good, and they were happy. Min-jae would pick them up after work, all 3 girls piling into his car, talking over each other about their day. He'd take them for ice cream, to the park, to bookstores where they'd spend hours choosing new stories. On weekends, Naomi would join them. They'd go to museums, beaches, hiking trails. Sometimes Min-jae's guards would follow at a distance, a reminder of his past life. But mostly, they were just a family. Not perfect, not traditional, but theirs. 3 months later, it was Hana's 6th birthday. The penthouse was decorated with balloons, streamers, and a massive cake shaped like a unicorn, Hana's current obsession. A handful of children from the clinic had been invited. Kids the girls had befriended, kids who understood what it meant to be different. Naomi watched from the kitchen as Min-jae helped Hana blow out the candles, his smile genuine and unguarded. She'd never imagined this, not in her wildest dreams. 5 months ago, she'd walked into his office expecting rejection, mockery, maybe a cold dismissal. Instead, she'd found this: a partner, a co-parent, someone learning to be better, someone who loved their daughters with the kind of fierce devotion that rewrote everything. "You're staring," a voice said beside her. Naomi jumped. Junho stood there, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on his face. "I'm not," Naomi started. "You are," Junho interrupted. "And so is he. He stares at you when you're not looking." Naomi's cheeks flushed. "It's not like that." Junho chuckled. "Sure it's not." He walked away, leaving Naomi flustered and confused. Later that night, after the guests had left and the girls were asleep, Min-jae and Naomi cleaned up in comfortable silence. "Thank you," Naomi said suddenly. "For today. For all of this." Min-jae looked up from the garbage bag he was tying. "You don't have to thank me. They're my daughters too." "I know, but still," Naomi smiled. "You're a good father, Min-jae. I don't think I've told you that." His expression softened. "I'm trying." "You're succeeding." They held each other's gaze for a moment too long. Then Naomi cleared her throat. "I should go. Early day tomorrow at the clinic." "Yeah, of course." But neither of them moved. "Naomi," Min-jae said quietly. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever think about us? Not as co-parents, but as?" He trailed off, unsure. Naomi's heart pounded. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But I'm scared." "Of me? Of getting hurt again?" Min-jae nodded slowly. "I understand. And I don't blame you." "But," Naomi prompted, "but I'm not the same man I was 5 years ago. That man was a coward, selfish, blind." He stepped closer. "This man? He knows what he lost, and he'll spend the rest of his life proving he's worthy of a second chance." Naomi's breath hitched. "Min-jae, I'm not asking for an answer tonight," he said softly. "I'm just asking you to think about it, because I'm in love with you, Naomi, not the memory of you. The woman standing in front of me right now. The mother of my children. The strongest person I've ever met." Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. "I love you," Min-jae repeated, "and I'll wait as long as it takes for you to believe me." Naomi wiped her tears, her heart splitting open. "Ask me again in 6 months." Min-jae smiled. "I will." 6 months later, the seasons changed. Summer gave way to autumn, then winter. The girls started first grade. Naomi's clinic expanded. Min-jae's empire ran smoothly under Junho's leadership. And slowly, carefully, Naomi let her walls down. Min-jae kept his promise. He never pushed, never demanded. Just showed up, every single day, proving through actions what words couldn't convey. He learned to cook Naomi's favorite meals, stayed up with her when the clinic cases kept her awake, listened when she needed to vent, gave her space when she needed to breathe. And Naomi watched him become the man she'd always hoped he could be. On the 6-month anniversary of their conversation, Min-jae knocked on her apartment door. He held a single flower, a purple orchid, her favorite. "It's been 6 months," he said simply. Naomi smiled, taking the flower. "It has. So I'm asking again." He took her hand. "Naomi, will you give us, a real chance?" She looked into his eyes and saw everything, the regret, the love, the hope. And she saw herself reflected back, stronger, healed, ready. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Min-jae pulled her into his arms and they kissed, soft, tentative, filled with promises of better tomorrows. When they pulled apart, they heard giggling. Hana, Soo-min, and Ji-yeon were peeking around the corner, their glows pulsing with excitement. "Finally!" Hana shouted. "We've been waiting forever," Soo-min added. Ji-yeon just smiled, her warmth filling the room. Min-jae laughed, pulling the girls into the embrace. Naomi joined them, and for the first time in 5 years, they were complete. A family. Not by accident, not by obligation, but by choice. 1 year later, Epilogue. The house by the lake was perfect. Min-jae had bought it 6 months ago, a sprawling estate with gardens, a private dock, and enough space for the girls to run wild. It was far from the city, from the empire, from the chaos. It was home. Naomi stood on the back porch, watching the girls play by the water. Hana was teaching her sisters to skip stones, using her visions to predict the perfect angle. Sumin floated leaves into intricate patterns. Ji-yeon warmed the air around them, keeping the autumn chill at bay. They were 8 now. Beautiful, bright, extraordinary. Min-jae wrapped his arms around Naomi from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy?" he murmured. Naomi leaned into him, deliriously. "No regrets?" She turned in his arms, smiling. "Only that it took us so long to get here." Min-jae kissed her forehead. "We have the rest of our lives to make up for it." Naomi's smile widened. "Actually, we might need a bigger house." Min-jae frowned. "Why?" Naomi placed his hand on her stomach, her eyes shining. "Because we're going to need a nursery." Min-jae froze. His eyes went wide. "You're pregnant," Naomi confirmed. 3 months. Min-jae's knees nearly gave out. He pulled her close, laughing and crying at the same time. "Another one?" "Another one," Naomi whispered. The girls noticed the commotion and ran over, their glows brightening. "What's happening?" Hana demanded. Min-jae knelt down, pulling all 3 girls close. "You're going to be big sisters." Chaos erupted, squeals, jumping, glowing so bright the entire yard lit up. Naomi watched, her heart so full it ached. This was her empire now, not built on fear or power, but on love, on second chances, on the belief that broken things could be mended. And as the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, the family stood together, complete, healed, home.
Wait, before the video ends, listen. If you've ever felt invisible, unnoticed, like the person you love doesn't really see you, this is for you. You can feel that closeness again, that spark, that connection, the way it used to be. But you have to take the first step. Scan the QR code now. Don't wait. Your chance to be seen, to be noticed, to be wanted. It's right here, right now.